Prior to 2004, the UK's legal framework surrounding sexual offences was a patchwork of Victorian-era statutes and historical precedents that struggled to address modern realities. The pressure for reform followed the 1991 House of Lords decision in RVR, which abolished the common law rule that a husband could not legally rape his wife. Parliament responded with the Sexual Offences Act 2003, replacing fragmented laws with a unified statute code. Within this statutory framework, consent is a bipartite legal mechanism. It is an essential component of both the physical Actus Reus and the defendant's mental state, or Mens Rea. Consider two scenarios. In the first, two individuals engage in sexual activity after heavy drinking in a crowded pub. In the second, a person uses a fake online profile to trick someone into a sexual act on a webcam. We will deconstruct these scenarios using the IRAC method, identifying the issue, stating the rule, applying the analysis, and reaching a conclusion strictly from the text. Success on legal examinations requires stripping away moral subjectivity to trace exactly how the facts navigate the specific legal gates established by the statute. This flowchart maps the primary offenses. Section 1 defines rape, requiring penile penetration into the vagina, anus, or mouth. Section 2, assault by penetration, covers intentional penetration of the vagina or anus with any object. Section 3 is sexual assault, covering intentional sexual touching. To prove a Section 3 offense, the prosecution must establish that the touching meets the legal definition of sexual under Section 78. If the physical act is ambiguous, the court applies an objective test. This distinguishes, for example, a Michael examination from an act performed for a defendant's sexual gratification. The 2005 case of RVH established the rule for these ambiguous situations. Juries must ask two questions. First, would reasonable people consider that the touching could be sexual? Second, was the defendant's purpose actually sexual? Regardless of the specific charge, criminal liability ultimately depends on the presence or absence of factual consent. Section 74 defines factual consent, agreeing by choice, having both freedom and capacity. If any element is absent, legal consent fails. This creates tension regarding voluntary intoxication and capacity to choose, debated in R.V. Dougal, before a definitive ruling in R.V. Bree. The rule in Bree is that if a complainant voluntarily consumes alcohol, but remains capable of choosing whether or not to have intercourse, a drunken consent remains a legal consent. However, the judgment noted that the capacity to consent can legally evaporate before a complainant reaches unconsciousness. For the mens rea, the prosecution must prove the defendant intentionally penetrated or touched the victim while lacking a reasonable belief that the victim consented. Under Section 1, subsection 2, this belief is evaluated objectively, based on all the circumstances. Because factual consent relies on jury interpretation, Parliament established specific statutory presumptions to provide definitive legal outcomes. Sections 75 and 76 shift the evidentiary burden. Section 75 establishes rebuttable presumptions for lack of consent, triggered by violence, detention, or stupefying substances, requiring the defendant to produce contrary evidence. Section 76 establishes irrebuttable presumptions if the defendant deceives or impersonates someone. Revisiting the webcam scenario, we can analyze how courts interpret deception under Section 76. In R.V. Jeta, the court took a narrow view, ruling that tricking a victim to avoid fake fines did not deceive them as to the physical nature of the act. In R.V. Devenald, however, posing online as a woman to trick a victim into a sexual act on camera was ruled a deception as to the actual purpose. Controversies regarding Section 76 often involve conditional consent. In the extradition case of Julian Assange, the court determined that failing to wear a condom did not amount to a deception as to the nature or purpose of the act under Section 76, though it could negate factual consent under Section 74. While Section 75 forces the defendant to produce evidence to rebalance the scales, Section 76 acts as a conclusive legal mechanism, establishing both the Actus Reus and Mens Rea of non-consent immediately upon proof of the trigger facts. There is a statutory cutoff point where the logic of consent and belief is abandoned entirely. Sections 5, 6, and 7 govern sexual offenses where the victim is a child under 13. For the Actus Reus, any factual consent offered by a child under 13 is legally non-existent. The mens rea component operates on strict liability regarding age. If a defendant has sex with a child under 13, it is no defense that they genuinely and reasonably believed the child was older. For victims under 13, the statute replaces subjective evaluation with strict mathematical age thresholds. We will now apply this framework to single best answer questions, or SBAQs. Pitfall 1 is gender application. Examiners may describe a female defendant penetrating a victim with an object, offering rape as a distractor answer. Rule out Section 1 rape immediately because it requires penile penetration. The correct charge for a female defendant in that scenario is Section 2, assault by penetration. Pitfall 2 is confusing the presumptions. The examiner will test your ability to distinguish the legal outcomes of a spiked drink versus an impersonation. Categorize the spiked drink as triggering a rebuttable Section 75 presumption. The impersonation triggers a conclusive, irrebuttable presumption under Section 76. Pitfall 3 is the reasonable belief trap for minors. You may see a fact pattern where a defendant takes exhaustive steps to verify the age of a 12-year-old. Reject any option offering a reasonable belief defense. Below the age of 13, the strict liability rule applies. Success requires ignoring emotional distractors, mapping facts to the statutory flowchart, and applying the IRAC method with absolute precision.